Welcome to the Dr. Selma B Show. It's May. I love the month of May because May flowers gives us hope and inspiration. It's also my birthday month. It's a month where we get to celebrate our sheroes and our heroes. Thank you to all of our teachers who throughout this challenging year found it in their hearts to love and support our students and serve as a resource for our families. May also includes Nurses Appreciation Week and Mother's Day. I have a solid line of nurses in my family. Love to my darling sister who has been a nurse for more than 25 years, and my niece who's also a nurse. For Nurses Appreciation Month and Mother's Day, I partnered with my dear friend and fellow entrepreneur, Dr. Mitsan Edmond, owner of Elevation Dental Studio, to celebrate the nurses at Jacobi Hospital. It was awesome sauce fun. We got to surprise the nurses in the pediatric unit, the NICU, and the PICU with a lovely gift bag that included one of our inspirational journals. The decision to honor nurses in pediatric was also important to me because as I listened to the narrative that this year has been a lost academic year for our children, I want to tell you that how we move forward with our children in schools is by letting go of the boundaries and reaching out for partners and partnerships that fundamentally change your way of thinking and our approach. And that's why today I want to talk about the intersection of diversity and creativity. Before we go deep, thank you for taking the time to like and subscribe to the channel because our goal is to bring you inspiring content. And when you take a moment to like and subscribe, that's feedback from myself and the team. And it also helps Dr. B break the YouTube glass ceiling. This is a transformational season. If we stopped time and considered all that is happening, we'd see change happening right before our eyes. We have civil unrest, we're experiencing loss of lives, but also loss of customs. Why? Why all of this now? What are the lessons that we cannot afford to miss? Beloved, there is a shaking and uprooting of systems, customs, and traditions. And the question is, will we go back to what is not working? I say no, and in fact, heck no. But how do we move forward? How do we have the courage to have an open mind and be brave and face our vulnerability that is present when we let go and reach for diversity and creativity, which in turn will help us to innovate, solve problems, and create a better world for ourselves and the next generation. First, diversity should not be a buzzword. I have a colleague who recently called me to reflect on a job interview. She shared that she was excited to apply for a tenure position at a university who reached out to her noting that they wanted to diversify their staff. She was confident about the interview. But at the end of the interview, the committee asked her to take a skills test. That's right, a skills test. I wanted to hit the really button. And the move towards diversity now looks like corporations and organizations creating short-term positions. They'll tell you that we'll hire you for a year or 2 years, and let's see if this works out. Diversity is not a checklist. You have to do the work, to challenge thinking, and to be courageous to debunk ingrained and deep-rooted beliefs and mental models. During this pandemic, we are all witnessing people who are exploring and finding their creative side. They're discovering that they like cooking, decorating, and for some, these have also led to new ventures around starting a business. It feels good, but will they be able to move forward? What I'm asking is, will it be sustainable? What if we changed that paradigm and saw someone's life as a creative masterpiece? That would mean that how we go about our daily lives would change. It would mean an end to the sequential narrative of go to school, learn some skills and competencies, and just get a job. If we saw our life as a creative masterpiece, our actions and all our efforts would become intentional as we shift our vision to creating the life we want. And if we agree that we are all working on a masterpiece, we will want to persevere through it. And guess what? For me personally, as I work on my life's masterpiece, I remain hopeful that as I engage in the work, I might even learn some patience. What gets in the way of diversity and creativity, which also derails innovations? Let's talk about customs, traditions, and time. Well, what are customs? Well, you've heard the saying, when in Rome, do like the Romans. The hidden and underlying message is to follow the rules. It speaks about customs, and customs are not truths, even though we desperately hold on to them and adhere to them. Customs tell us how to dress, how to speak, how to express ourselves. And if I use my superpower to stop time for us, we would see that our customs have become about doing what is popular, what is trending, rather than doing what's right. And doing what's popular and the custom of one-upping has become and replaced creativity. And sadly, for so many parents, it has become a default. So for example, there are parents who says, well, my child does baseball and basketball. And another parent might say, well, my child does baseball, basketball, and shaves the hair off lambs on the weekend. Public opinions kind of distract us from our creativity and innovation because you get lost in doing what others expect of you. But it's important to understand the difference between traditions and customs. Traditions and customs do go hand in hand. However, traditions last over generations. And when an approach and a way of thinking has been around a long time, we begin to think the tradition is the truth. Beloved, traditions can repeat things that are false over hundreds of years and even thousands of years. You and I both have to be willing to question the belief that standing the test of time doesn't make something true. And this mindset is what gets in the way of diversity, opportunity, and also creativity. We must never fool ourselves and think that this is how it was done and therefore there can't be any errors, because if there was an error in our approach, then the error would have revealed itself over time. When we consider racism in the workplace, our communities, school, and society, we have to realize that oftentimes people don't want to change because it has become customary and tradition. In their lives, hate and fear has stood the test of time. And not to mention that they may have benefited from it economically. As we look to the future, we have to remain committed to continuously challenging long-standing tradition. What my colleague experienced when she was asked to take a skills test, and why everyone thinks that they have to now have committees to find the one talented Black person who must meet all the diversity checklists, it's a belief system that didn't just show up yesterday. It comes from the belief that slaves were worthless and should take on subservient roles. Even though you and I are both, and everyone alive today in reality, are generations removed from the plantation, the beliefs linger. So how do we move forward? To move forward, we must also challenge polarized views of diversity, which has been conceptualized around race and extremes of black and white, and everyone else is in the middle. And those that have the mental model that they've been pushed in the middle operate from the mindset that they have to make sure that the world does not view them as having any connection to black so that they can move ahead in the world. Race is not a number line, and sadly, this construct has been around for a very long time. What are the actions that we all need to now consider if we are going to move forward and sustain change? First, why do we want it? To change an organizational culture, there must be a commitment that starts with leadership that seeks the personal growth of every member. Personal growth begins with creating a safe space for self-awareness and for courageous conversations. These courageous conversations require facilitation because issues of race and diversity can create feelings of defensiveness, fear, hurt, insecurity, and if it's not done well, people often walk away not communicating and being even more wounded. And the truth is, your why has to be transformational so that your members of your organization want to remain at the table. What are you seeking to engender within your organization? What's the nature of the organization you are seeking to create? Self-development of individuals should not take second place to financial success. Changing beliefs around our why has to be rooted in us wanting to have a more expansive view of the world around us. And it is that realization that pushes us now to reach for diversity. Because you have to want a fundamentally larger view and aspirations for yourself on a personal level, for your organization, and the world that we are seeking to create. Yes, organizations can have lovely vision statements, but what's the vision really doing for you? Are the members of your organization running towards it or running away from it? Let's talk about genuine caring. If your organization is not a place that cares about people, the people won't feel comfortable talking about how the organization deals with diversity. I have colleagues that say that when they've taken the risk to mention in a meeting that an organization is not living what they preach, they often become even more marginalized and punished. And sadly, the truth is they were not criticizing, but they were really trying to start a dialogue. That creates even more hurt and gets nowhere. Genuine caring means that listening has to become part of the culture of the organization. And leaders and individuals must also learn how to listen for what can't be said. When people don't feel cared for, they're not going to share their creative energy because there's no pulling towards the goal. If we are to move forward, then we also have to become mindful of emotions. Creativity requires vision. If you have an idea and you have to work towards that idea, let's be honest that it's challenging when you're putting in the work and it's not happening sometimes fast enough. You begin to feel discouraged. Now your emotions may get the better of you, and you may tell yourself, what? I didn't want to be on Broadway anyway. You give up and you change your vision and your dream. You can say it out loud, I'm going to find the cure for cancer. But how does saying that make you feel on the subconscious level? Did the voice of the imposter whisper, who is she kidding? Who is he kidding? We learn about our limitations growing up, and our emotions are tied to our failures and our successes. Children are constantly being told, you can't have this, you can't do this. And when they hear those words, we never address how that makes them feel. And for many, it becomes internalized, and it limits our ability to create and to find our talents. When trying to change organizational culture, so that it can become a place that truly values diversity. Emotions like having low tolerance often needs to be addressed because we waver from the goal of diversity. And the reality is that people can come after you and they can try to sabotage the process. They hack into meetings and they vote out and choose to opt out of the discussion. Structures and frameworks also matter. To create a more inclusive ecosystem, you have to know your structures. What is the most fundamental question that must be asked about structures? Well, are your structures keeping others from seeing how they relate to others and how they build relationships? It's also important to be mindful that this takes time. Beloved, cause and effect are not always closely linked in time. We know the deep issues of poverty and violence, unemployment, drug abuse are effects of a system. And it's a very complex system. It's made up of people, people who make decisions, people who write and implement policy, and people who have long-standing beliefs in these systems. And we have to be mindful that change takes time. And we can use this to work in our favor as we look ahead to the future. It says that when we choose not to turn away from the hard issues and take an active part in becoming and forming meaningful relationships with others, and if we allow different voices, we will now be able to find solutions for our generations ahead. Most importantly, creativity requires an investment of time. Downtime also, because you need downtime to renew your energy and just to be able to create a space to think. Finally, we have to remember that working smarter doesn't mean pushing harder. We are in a phase where we're pushing very hard against the system, and I know that that isn't necessary. You're pushing against tyrants. We have to be mindful and know that when you push hard against the system does push back. If, for example, you're a parent who worries much about their child and the future and you want the best for them, you may unknowingly become the overprotective parent. And then you end up stepping in to resolve every issue on the playground. That means your child will never learn the skills needed for life and never really learn how to communicate with others. And sadly, the nature of how they communicate with you will never evolve. Working smarter is about seeking higher leverage points. You need diversity because if you have all the same people who have all the same traditions, then they all see the problem the same way. And you'll never be able to see any of the blind spots. As I reflect on our work with students and educators, our approach is different and has to be different. Educators think that our kids are not doing well in math, and their solution is push more math and more standards. Well, that's not working. We have to work smarter, and so as a company, we want to advocate for things like water tables in the classrooms for our earliest learners. Why not? You spend the first 9 months of your life in water and in fluid, but yet still our curriculum has no opportunities for our child to explore and to experience water and volume and measurement in a different way. The fight for diversity is not new. Let's be brave and seek to establish traditions and customs that allow others to fulfill their vision for their life. As you and I both work to create the masterpiece that is our life, we will learn how to work smarter and not harder. We will continue to trust that we will get the rewards. Remember, they won't always be immediate. Most importantly, you and I are going to take a breath, which will help us to manage our emotions. As we come to a close, I want to invite you again to view another one of our episodes on the Dr. Selma B Show. Check out our episode on confidence or purpose. Also, check out one of our webinars on transformational leadership. Beloved, saying thanks is not the same as giving thanks, and I give thanks for you. Until next time, continue to stay safe, and I love you for watching. Hello, I'm Dr. Selma Bartholomew, and we're on location today for the Dr. Selma B Show. We're at Jacoby Hospital in the Bronx, and we are celebrating Nurses Appreciation Week. Congrats and thank you to all of our nurses for all of the work that they do, certainly during COVID and standing in the gap for us and being there with their compassionate care. But we wanted to recognize today the nurses in the pediatric unit at Jacoby. And I'm honored to have my dear friend and fellow business owner, Dr. Mitzan Edmond, who's with me, who's the owner of Elevation Dental Studio. Dr. Edmond?
Yes, thank you, Selma, for inviting me to this wonderful event today. We had a wonderful time celebrating the nurses this week and showing our appreciation. I'm the owner of Elevation Dental Studio, and we are a family dental practice in Mount Vernon. So I'm so excited to be here celebrating our healthcare workers and giving back to them.
So as we think, Dr. Edmond, when we thought about today, this was really important to us because Jacoby is this hidden gem in the Bronx. And oftentimes when we work in education, we know the work that our teachers do. So it's also Teacher Appreciation Week, so we wanted to celebrate our teachers as well. But our teachers stand in the gap for our parents and for our students. But we wanted to recognize the work of nurses and in healthcare. So why is that so important for you as a dentist during this time period?
Well, as a healthcare worker myself, I know how hard it is to give of yourself for your patients as well as your own family. It is a dual role that we play. So it's really wonderful to take time to appreciate our nurses because it is a work of service. Every single day we have to give of ourselves, not just to families, but to patients. And, it takes a lot of time. So it's important to say thank you and to give back.
It was such a wonderful day. It was so nice seeing all of the smiles and bringing such smiles to the nurses, to Nurse Panacio and her team, at the team at Jacoby Hospital. And as we look ahead also, we want to say that failure is not a love language. As we've been talking about the pandemic and the impact on families, we are concerned about the loss of the year in the academic year, but we want to look forward. And so that's why this day was so important to us, to show partnership and to show that what we do matters, and our hand is in the hands of the nurses and the healthcare workers here, and their hand is in your hand as well. So we wanted to say thank you, and happy Nurse Appreciation Week.
Yes, enjoy. And we are so proud to be a part of giving back to our healthcare workers.